Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session today on eliminating workplace bias and boosting well-being with AI assistance. I'm just going to give everyone a few more seconds to come in to the session. I've got a few more people joining now. See there, a few more. Okay, I think we're just about there, so let's get moving. Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Brad Garland. I am sales director here at Applaud, and I'm joined today by my colleague Nicola Regan, solution consulting manager, who's going to take you through a demonstration. Now, for those of you who don't know who Applaud are, we offer a suite of HR service delivery solutions that are empowered throughout with the most advanced AI in the market today. So whether you're looking for your sort of first steps into AI in your people function or to take your existing use of AI to the next level, we have an incredibly powerful suite of solutions that can help you deliver against those goals. And what we're going to be focusing on today is really the kind of power and the latest advancements with AI assistance. And we're going to be discussing the rapid pace of AI and its inevitable integration into modern technology, what some of those different use cases for AI assistance, and understanding the ROI of AI assistance in general. So just first off, a quick history lesson. So many people think of AI as a kind of new technology, but actually people have been working on AI and with AI since the 1950s. So as with all technological advancement, there's always that tipping point where the foot hits the floor and the acceleration of that technology ramps up 100-fold. And that's very much where the world is today with AI right now. So previously, when we start to think about what a kind of chatbot is and what it looks like and how it behaves, we'd all default to that experience you see on the left. And in many cases, maybe we still do, but these are kind of awful pre-written narratives. You get stuck in an endless loop, and that doesn't really get you what you want. And in the end, we're all just begging to speak to a real person and getting quite frustrated with the process. So today, Gen AI is more sophisticated and uses more conversational language and genuine intelligence to understand people's inquiries, respond helpfully and instantly, which is a very critical piece around that speed to get what you're looking for. So it's quite funny thinking about the advancement of AI in the last year. These videos are AI generated just 12 months apart. I'd love to know who it was who created the video on the left and what was their inspiration. But as you can see, the advancement is pretty intense. It's learning, adapting at an unprecedented rate, and I think we're going to have more around AI video and how that will be embedded into business in a later session in our AI series. So today, organizations are working to improve well-being and eliminate bias. 74% of employers, note that they intend to increase their commitment to employee well-being in the next 1 to 3 years, but only 50% of employees say that they've seen an increase so far. 55% of employees say they don't understand their benefits at all. So, I mean, ultimately, employees don't know what they don't know. Without effective communication, the investments that your business makes into things like employee well-being, they will just go to waste. Just because you guys might have sent an email or a communication doesn't mean that everyone will have seen it or read it. And that's the reality. What people want is all the information that they need as easily as possible when they want it. It doesn't necessarily work to the same timeline. And if we take a look at a recent study by Buck, it's pretty clear here what we're seeing is a gap in kind of perception. So the insights that we've seen in this study kind of show employees' perception of what their employers have invested in for them is often very misaligned. And this isn't great for morale. It's not great for HR's reputation either. And it does lead to things like increased attrition rates and can also impact things like your Glassdoor scores as well. So we've all seen many kind of poor reviews on Glassdoor for this type of stuff. But what it's really showing here is, organizations are investing a lot of money into these programs, and employees just aren't understanding what's available to them. So our kind of suggested approach here is really a kind of menu of assistance for the many different use cases. So it can support more specific use cases like manager assistance, policy reviews, navigating internal processes, really inspiring people with ideas of how the business can use AI, maybe thinking outside the box. It makes it really clear as well from a people perspective how they can engage with the AI assistant and what it'll help with. And ultimately, that supports other core business values as well, like your DEI programs, benefits, well-being, and so on. So by taking this approach, you're making it far clearer what services are available to employees and giving them an easy way to find what they need. So if I'm looking for well-being support, I can clearly see it's available to me because I have a well-being support chatbot right there in front of me. But I might not even think to question a generic chatbot about such a topic. Or likewise, if I'm a manager thinking about inclusivity within my team, I might need some support when it comes to the way that I communicate, or how maybe I might advertise an open role in my team, but without showing kind of unconscious bias. So again, I might not think that I could get that kind of support and from a generic chatbot on that topic, but with a clear visibility to me of a dedicated bias checker chatbot, I'm going to be able to kind of explore how that can support me in my role. Now, this was a test that we ran with one of our customers recently, where we had the kind of traditional, if you will, all-encompassing chatbot, which had access to the entirety of their SharePoint library, and then just building a simpler chatbot and uploading access to 3 HR policies and no other information. We then started quizzing around some traditional and typical questions that they would get into their HR service delivery team. And in all instances, Applaud's AI assistant outperformed on the key criteria. So thinking about things like accurate responses, conciseness of the response, and the user experience as well. Because people want an answer to their question. They don't just want to be linked off to a 10-page policy where you can find your answer within this. They actually just want the answer to their question kind of then and there in the moment. And what we found, actually, once the AI assistant had been introduced, that the number of employee inquiries or questions, if you will, into the HR team actually went up. But those requiring a manual response from someone in that team went down significantly because they're better able to self-serve through the digital assistant. So it's fielding a huge percentage of those inquiries. So this shows that kind of employees do have questions that they're not asking, but they want to ask. The reason they haven't been asking is because it's just been too difficult to get an answer to the question, or they don't want to have to wait 24, 48, 72 hours, or whatever the sort of the typical KPI is on that. If you think about the kind of ROI in this as well, you're saving not only in the admin function from your HR team, but also among the people population as well. So imagine the impact that that could have on your HR service delivery team, especially in a time when budgets are being squeezed and we're all being asked to kind of do more with less. And the big plus point here is on that employee satisfaction. It's ultimately going to improve HR's reputation, but they're getting answers to their questions in the moment. Because if I'm an employee, I'm asking a question, it's because I'm seeking that information right then and there. I don't want that in 48 hours time. And that could be if it's like a low priority ticket is picked up at all. What I actually want is someone to answer my question then and there in the moment, and that's vital really for improving and maintaining a great reputation. And it's not just about those experience and kind of productivity results, but actually the return on investment in Gen AI is absolutely huge. And let's face it, that's ultimately what's going to make this a critical business priority. We're seeing organizations save millions with a very, very quick setup. When you compare that to some other types of projects that can be quite heavy on resource load, this really is very impactful and can be delivered in a number of ways and open up new avenues for engaging with the HR and HR service delivery teams. So I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Nicola, who's going to actually take you through a live demo, bring some of this to life. And if there are any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat and we can come back to those once Nicola's finished.
That's great. Thanks, Brad. I don't think we've got any questions in the chat just yet. So I shall crack on. So just double checking, you can see my screen. I'm hoping if
yes,
you can,
we can.
Brad, everyone else can. Great. Okay, so Brad's given us a really good sort of foundation as to why AI in the workplace is becoming such a fundamental tool, but sort of bringing it back to the topic of this webinar in terms of eliminating bias in the workplace and boosting well-being. I'm going to show you some examples of how the AI chat facilities that we have within Applaud can help support that as some of the examples. So I'm actually accessing the chat facility through our employee portal. So you can see where I'm accessing that from. However, this can, of course, be embedded within other solutions. So really trying to obtain maximum adoption of AI. So rather than thinking about this being a solely sort of standalone piece that only sits within maybe a HR platform, it might be that you've got learning or benefit platforms and you want to embed it within there. So people, once again, are signposted from wherever they're working and they can access the AI chat facility from there. So what we're doing today is thinking about eliminating bias in the workplace. We know that that's crucial for creating that fair and inclusive environment where all employees feel valued and have equal opportunities for growth and success. But what we're going to do today is look at how these bots and how AI can help support that. So you'll notice on the top left-hand side, I've got a number of different bots available to me as this user. The first one I want to look at is this Ask HR bot. So this particular bot has been prompted in the background. We've told this bot it is a helpful HR bot. It is going to be asked general HR questions, and it needs to answer in a friendly but professional tone of voice. And that's another benefit of having multiple bots here, because we can ask them to do completely different things and respond in a completely different tone of voice. But to begin with, I'm going to start with asking a couple of questions of this Ask HR bot. Brad, before I continue, is everything coming through okay? I've just had a warning, so my internet's not stable.
Yeah, all looks fine. Maybe
right,
feel free to switch the camera off to preserve.
Yeah, I might turn my camera off just to avoid any issues there. Okay. So I've got a couple of standard examples in here. First one being thinking about it from a manager's perspective, because often when we're thinking about bias in the workplace, it's unconscious bias, or in fact, as a manager, we get reportees coming to us beginning to say, well, I've actually got a problem with X, Y, and Z, and it's related to bias issues. So what I'm going to do is begin to start asking questions of this bot. So even as a manager, I can begin to say, well, you could just simply be, a colleague, someone that you've befriended at work. And so, well, how can I support a colleague? They're struggling with gender bias and having problems with that. And what this does is go away, look at all of the knowledge that we provided to this bot to see and provide us with an answer. And instead of just bringing back lots of policy documentation, it's actually going away, reading that documentation for us and providing us with that answer. Now, not only is it looking at documentation or websites that we've provided it links to, it's also, in this example, using the knowledge of OpenAI, the most up-to-date inclusivity knowledge it has to help support the answers that it presents here as well. So that's just one example that we've got in terms of asking questions when it comes to eliminating bias, but also we've got a few different ones in here as well. It might be that actually, I want to think about some training within, some diversity training. Again, this could be as a manager, this could just be as somebody within the workplace. So I can begin to start asking questions of of AI within here. Now, in this instance, I know that we don't have any policy documentation pertaining to diversity training, not within this demo environment. So we've got this set to say, well, actually, I know who you are. In this instance, we've got somebody called Annalise. She has a job title of HR business partner. So what it does is go, but I will provide you with information on what I know about HR business partners and the types of training that's generally available for diversity in the workplace to people of your role. So you can begin to ask questions of it in that manner as well. I'm a tiny bit slow today, but it's never a demo if things don't slow down a bit, is it? Now, what I want to do is actually emphasize here, this is great. We can begin to ask questions of it, and it's making these questions that can sometimes be difficult really easy and accessible. But that's not always what sort of diversity is about. There's that old age problem of language and being able to access information in an individual's first language. So lots of organizations may have all of their policy documents in a certain language, or certainly not, exposed to all of the languages of employees within their organization. So I can ask this exact same question in terms of, is there any diversity training in the work available to me? So I'm asking the same question here, but I'm putting it in Spanish instead. So what that would do is go away and read all that documentation again, or go and find the information from where we've set it up to look for that information. If it's reading an English policy document, and let's think about that as an example, it will still present the correct information from that policy document back to this end user in the language that they have asked this in. So what we're doing here really is allowing organizations to demonstrate their commitment to inclusion and really ensuring that all employees, regardless of their sort of linguistic background, they can feel valued and really begin to feel supported in the workplace, regardless of the language capabilities they have. So just another example popping through there. Okay, what to do is head on to the bias buster. I think we have had some questions come in, but I'll try and pick them up at the end. What you might have noticed as well, actually haven't prompted yet, is at the bottom of each and every one of the questions or responses that we get, we can also say, yep, that's great, or no, not so great, you haven't given me the answer that I want. The benefit of this is that it continually from the answers we give it. It knows, yep, that was a great response. And continually evolves on the answers that it provides based upon the feedback it gets as well. So I'm just going to go into Bias Buster now. So this is a separate bot that we have in here as standard, but what this really does is it's been prompted in a completely different way to that sort of Q&A bot that we just saw. This has been prompted to analyze information. This is where it gets really quite exciting because it enables us to input information, input data, and actually begin to analyze it. So we prompted it to analyze the data, give us a score between 1 and 10 for inclusivity ratings. So I've got a couple of examples that we're going to run through, but this can be used for so many different things, whether that's job postings, it could be company handbooks, general internal communications, performance evaluations, maybe even sort of training materials. So there's lots of different things in where we can use this Bias Buster. But if I come in, the first thing I'm going to be posting here is a performance evaluation. All we just want, but we've gone through, submitted this performance evaluation. So we'll go away and start looking at including data to see whether we've used the correct language. And if we haven't used the correct language, it will give us, as you can see there, a score out of 10, and also begin to give us recommendations of how we can improve this. So in here, we can see that it's recommending that, in fact, there's a statement in here that stereotypes women for it to be a warm and nurturing demeanor, and we know that's not always the case. So also gives us suggested alternatives as well. So really trying to ensure that we've got that sort of inclusivity side of things nailed. And that's great when we're thinking about internal communications that we need to have, but also thinking about job descriptions or any kind of recruiting material that you might have in general. So I have a job description for a HR business partner here. Again, just a fictitious one. Once again, goes and looks at all of that information that I have just copied and pasted in there and checks to see if we've got any bias whatsoever. So quite a high score there, which is nice. But it's also recommending that we've got, this person might have to be extroverted, the way that we've worded this. So again, really trying to prevent scaring people off from a job they absolutely are capable of doing, just because the wording might in fact draw extroverts on those introverts to us in this example. So it's given us some suggested alternatives in there as well. I said lots of different ways in how that can be used and supported there. So moving on to the final piece is sort of that wellbeing side of things. As Brad said a bit earlier on one of his slides, and I was actually looking at the same, I think like the same report that you had, Brad, there in terms of sort of the perceived importance to either the employee or the employer. So we know that employees, in fact, that financial well-being and that mental health support is high on their radar, as opposed to employers seem to be obviously wanting to retain top talent and have an engaged workforce, which is nice because obviously recognising an engaged workforce is a happier workforce and therefore more productive. We've just got those next hurdles to get over now, which is general sort of well-being. So what I've got here is a few different examples. So this particular bot, again, a bit of a Q&A bot. You may have noticed on all of the bots, I've got some conversation starters here. So if people don't always know what to ask or how to start that conversation, they could use those conversation starters. But we can see I've got an example here about being stressed. It is sort of one of the top things for burnout these days as well, stress and anxiety in the workplace. So it's one of the things at top of the list, top of mind when it comes to being able to support our employees. So this particular bot has, once again, a bit more of a Q&A type bot, but we're not asking this to look at any documentation, actually. At the moment, this is bringing answers through from the knowledge that it has within OpenAI. But of course, when you've got your own wellness programs and your own information, then we can draw that in and we can completely lock these down. So if you only ever want to draw upon your own policies, your own plans, your own websites, and that's absolutely fine. So we've got some example responses coming in there. So the ease of being able to do this is clearly one of the benefits here. Often employees don't always have the confidence to be able to go and have these perhaps more personal or necessarily have the trust to be able to go and ask these questions to a HR person within the organization. So hopefully we're beginning to reduce that stigma of having these conversations. We've got a bot available. We make it easy for the employee to have these conversations, open up. And if they know their colleagues have got access to this bot as well, really allowing them to have accessible resources and have those conversations internally, as we said, sort of reducing that stigma there as well. Ideally, we've got happier employees, and of course we can sort of improve activity and performance, but ultimately we really do want to increase awareness and create additional access to the support that organisations are beginning to provide more and more of. So I just put in a couple of different examples in there as well. Conscious we've got 4 minutes left before the end of the call. I think we've got a few questions that have come in.
Yeah, shall I read out the first question, Nicola?
Yeah, good.
So first one is, does it use the questions it receives for training?
So the bot itself is never, I think when it comes to the large language models that it uses, so it's using OpenAI, it's using those large language models, it does get trained based upon the responses. So not necessarily by the questions it gets asked, but certainly by the response you then provide. So if it's given a good or a bad response to that question, then it recognizes that, and next time hopefully provides a better answer to a similar question that might get asked. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, what we can do is help you identify questions that are getting asked a lot, and if that might then lead to the necessity to create any new content around that, identifying gaps and stuff in your content or knowledge, or even your policy documents, then that's something else that we can do as well.
And I think just one thing to clear up there, we don't have to, when it comes to the bots here, we don't train these bots at all. So it's all very minimum setup. So it's a case of prompting the bot, telling the bot what it's going to do and how helpful it's going to be and the tone of voice it's going to have. But then it goes away and looks at all of your documentation or out into, into the web to get its information from there.
Yeah, I think we're going to have time for one, maybe two more questions. So I'll move on to the next one. The examples you've shown so far look interesting, but don't seem to fundamentally connect to the learning and development capabilities that the organization has directly. It seems as though it reduces the number of clicks to get to where I want to be, but does not necessarily address the fundamental user need of wanting to access training and support. How can employees tell the difference between internal and external data sources? So just to kick off the response on this, I think the first point is around the difference between our demo environment and a live environment, being what information is connected to it. So if you actually do have L&D capabilities training available to specific individuals, then that's something that we can highlight. Would you expand on that, Nicola?
Yeah, and it's a really good question. So in terms of the information that's being brought through in here, it could be going, okay, well, I know who you are, I know what you do, I know the learning that's available to you, and therefore I can begin to present answers to you based upon that. It can also then produce links out. So if you've prompted the bot to produce links where they're relevant, and we can produce links out to the learning systems or any policy documentation if you did want to surface that in there. So there are different ways over and above what we've seen today of actually it becoming much more personalized to that end user.
Excellent. Thanks, Nicola. So conscious of time, I'm just going to quickly take over sharing. Anyone who has asked a question within the chat who hasn't had their response as yet, we will come back to you on an email with response shortly. Just going to quickly highlight that the digital assistant, so Applaud's AI assistant, is available to try for free. So just going to be running a quick poll on the screen now. You should be able to see this. Would you like to try this out for yourself? If you'd be interested in hearing more information, simply answer yes or no on the poll on the screen now, and we'll be in touch accordingly with more information. Now, we have a series of these webinars planned right up to September at the moment, but we'll be continuing this right through to the end of the year. So hopefully you can join our next in mid-April, our essential guide to launching an HR AI project. So from Nicola and myself, thank you very much. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn or drop us an email if you have any other questions or thoughts. But for now, we'll wrap up on time and thank everybody for joining today.
Thank you, everybody.